There's a feeling you've probably had before but never quite knew how to explain. It isn't sadness. It isn't clinical anxiety. It's older than that. Stranger than that. It's the feeling of living the wrong life. Being in the right body, in the right city, next to the right people. And still something doesn't add up. Like you took a wrong turn at some invisible intersection and just kept driving, day after day, pretending it was the right road. Maybe you felt it looking at your own routine, thinking, this life is too familiar to be a mistake, but too strange to be my real life. Maybe you've woken up in the middle of the night with the absolute certainty that you should be somewhere else, being someone else, living a different story. And that certainty didn't come from a conscious thought. It came from somewhere deeper, almost cellular, as if the body remembered something the mind had already forgotten. Most people call this an existential crisis, a rough patch, anxiety about the future. Therapists call it dissonance, but there's a question almost nobody lets themselves ask. What if that feeling isn't a psychological problem at all? What if it's an accurate reading of your actual quantum condition? To understand that, we have to step out of opinion and into physics, even if just for a moment. In 1957, physicist Hugh Everett III proposed something that still divides the scientific community today, but has never been disproven: the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. According to this interpretation, every time a quantum event has more than one possible outcome. Reality doesn't pick just one. It branches. Every outcome happens, just in different branches of the universe that stop interacting with each other, but keep existing, each one just as real as the next. This isn't science fiction. It's one of the most respected and most debated interpretations in theoretical physics itself. And if you apply that logic not to subatomic particles, but to the trajectory of your own life, the implication is unsettling. Every major decision you made, every emotional fork in the road, every moment you could have become someone else and didn't, that other path wasn't erased. It branched, and it's still, on some level of the quantum field, unfolding. You didn't lose that other life. You didn't fail to reach it. You simply stopped being synchronized with it. And this is exactly where the most common mistake happens for anyone trying to change their life. The belief that you have to build a new future from scratch, brick by brick, through effort, discipline, and luck. But what physics suggests is radically different. It's not about creating something that doesn't exist. It's about realigning your perception with something that already does. A branch of reality where the more aligned, more whole, more true version of you is already living exactly the life you feel is missing, even though you've never technically lived it. That feeling of displacement you carry isn't weakness. It isn't fantasy. It's the echo of a parallel branch trying to be heard through the noise of the timeline you keep insisting on staying in. And there's a physical, measurable reason that old timelines still hold so much power over you. A reason most people will never understand, because nobody's ever had the nerve to explain, without sugarcoating it, what actually happens the moment reality splits, and why you keep choosing over and over the same branch that no longer fits who you've become. To understand why this sense of displacement is just as real as any physical law, we need to slow down and look carefully at what multiple realities actually means, not as a vague spiritual concept, but as a direct consequence of how the universe behaves at the quantum level. In classical physics, the physics of everyday life, an event has a single outcome. A rock falls, a ball rolls, a car collides, cause and effect, in a straight line. But when physicists started observing subatomic particles, something deeply strange showed up. A particle doesn't occupy a single defined state until the moment it's observed. Before that, it exists in superposition, in every possible state at once. The electron isn't here or there. It's everywhere it could be simultaneously, until something, or someone, forces that possibility to collapse into a single outcome. The question that haunted generations of physicists was, what happens to the other possibilities? Do they simply cease to exist the moment observation happens? Everett proposed a radical answer. No, they don't disappear, they split. Each possibility keeps unfolding, but in a branch of reality that's no longer in causal contact with yours. Physicists call this decoherence, the process by which different branches of reality lose the ability to interfere with one another and start evolving independently. each one internally consistent, each one absolutely real to whoever is living it from the inside. Now apply that to your own existence, not as poetic metaphor, but as literal structure. Every major decision you made, taking that job or turning it down, staying in that relationship or leaving, moving to a new city or staying put, was a branching point. And according to this interpretation of quantum physics, the version of you who took the other path didn't die, wasn't erased, isn't just what could have been. It simply decohered, split off from your field of observation and kept existing in parallel, in a branch you can no longer access through ordinary senses, but one that remains absolutely real within the structure of the universe itself. That means the life you're supposed to be living isn't a fantasy your mind invented. Under this lens, it's a genuine branch of reality. One that split off from yours the exact moment an earlier version of you made a choice out of fear, out of scarcity, out of an old identity, instead of choosing from who you actually are. And here's the detail that changes everything. If those other versions keep existing, the question was never, how do I create a new life? The only question that actually matters is, what determines which branch I'm experiencing right now, and what would have to shift for me to stop being synchronized with this one and start being synchronized with that one? That question doesn't have a comfortable answer, because the answer points straight back at you. Not at the universe, not at fate, not at luck. At you. And at the invisible mechanism that right now is deciding which of these infinite versions of reality you'll keep reinforcing with your attention, your emotion, and your identity. And that's exactly the mechanism we're about to expose. Before we go any further, I need to ask you something. If what you've read so far is landing in a way that few things ever have, if you're starting to recognize in your own body this feeling of being on the wrong branch, don't leave this video without subscribing right now. This matters because the next part is going to reveal the exact neurological mechanism keeping you locked into the old timeline. And this is the kind of content that tends to get buried by the algorithm if you're not subscribed to actually see it. Drop the word signal in the comments if you've ever felt, even once in your life, that physical certainty that you were supposed to be somewhere else. I read every comment, and I want to know how many people in this audience are carrying that same silent call. There's a principle in quantum physics that, once truly understood, stops being scientific trivia and becomes a practical key to transformation. It's called the observer effect. In simple terms, a subatomic particle, while unobserved, stays in a state of superposition, every possibility at once. But the instant it's observed, measured, perceived, it collapses into one defined state. Observation doesn't passively record reality. It participates in creating which reality shows up. This is one of the most debated, and at the same time, one of the most experimentally solid aspects of modern physics. The act of observing is not neutral. It interferes. It decides. Now, the question most manifestation content never asks correctly is, what exactly is observing your life? The answer isn't your eyes. The answer isn't your attention in the surface level sense. The answer is your identity, the deep set of beliefs about who you are, what you deserve, what's possible for you. That functions as the true measuring instrument of your experience. Two people can be in the exact same external circumstances, the same job, the same city, the same financial history, and still live completely different realities. One lives in constant scarcity, repeating the same frustration on loop. The other, with nearly identical resources, starts seeing doors open, the right people show up, opportunities line up. The difference isn't the circumstances, it's which identity is doing the observing, and therefore which branch of reality is being collapsed moment by moment. This is what we can call quantum identity, not your personality, not your history, but the deepest internal state from which you observe, and by observing, collapse your experience of life. And here's the uncomfortable part. Your current identity, even if you consciously want a different life, might be right now doing exactly the opposite work. It might be with every repeated thought, every recycled emotion, every unquestioned belief actively renewing the energetic signature of the old timeline, the very one you're trying to leave behind. Not because you're weak, not because you did something wrong, But because identity operates as an extremely consistent measuring instrument, it doesn't judge whether the outcome it's collapsing is good or bad for you. It simply collapses whatever is coherent with who it believes you are. And that's exactly why so many people say affirmations, visualize, want a new life intensely, and keep, inexplicably, collapsing the same results as always. Conscious desire isn't the primary observer. Identity is. And if identity is the instrument deciding which branch of reality becomes experience, there's an even deeper mechanism responsible for keeping that identity locked into the same pattern day after day, even against a person's conscious will. A neurological mechanism, measurable, documented, one that explains why it's so hard to leave the same timeline, even when you know rationally that you should. That mechanism is what we're about to expose, and it changes everything about how you should think about trying to change. If identity is the instrument that collapses which reality you experience, the next question is inevitable. Why does identity stay so resistant to change, even when someone deeply wants to be different? The answer lies in one of the most fascinating and most misunderstood processes in modern neuroscience: memory reconsolidation. For decades, it was believed that memories, once formed, stayed stored in a fixed way, like permanently saved files. But research over the last 2 decades revealed something far more dynamic. Every time a memory is recalled, it isn't simply retrieved, it's temporarily destabilized and then reconsolidated, meaning it gets rewritten. And here's the critical detail. It gets rewritten with the same emotional charge, the same meaning, the same interpretive patterns as before, unless something in the moment of recall is consciously different. That means every time you mentally relive an old frustration, a disappointment, a limiting belief about yourself, I never finish what I start. That kind of luck isn't for me. I always end up alone in moments like this. You're not just remembering the past. You're actively rebuilding, strengthening, and reaffirming the neural network that holds that identity in place. You're neurologically reinforcing the exact signature that keeps collapsing, over and over, the same branch of reality. And the most unsettling part is that this process doesn't require conscious effort. It happens automatically, silently, almost invisibly, through repetitive thoughts, internal conversations that loop on repeat, emotional reactions that fire before you even notice they're happening. The brain, in this sense, works as an extremely efficient repetition system. It doesn't ask whether that pattern is actually serving you. It simply identifies what's familiar and reproduces it, because for the nervous system, familiar equals safe, even when that safe is, in practice, a prison. This is the exact mechanism that keeps someone locked in the same cycle, even after reading dozens of self-help books, even after trying a new job, a new city, a new relationship, because the external circumstance changes, but the neural network interpreting, reacting, and observing from that old identity stays completely intact. And an intact identity, by definition, keeps collapsing the same branch of reality, no matter how many times the scenery around it gets repainted. That's why so many people report the strange feeling of recreating the same problem in different clothes, the same type of difficult partner, just in a new city, the same pattern of financial self-sabotage, just in a different career, the same emptiness even surrounded by new people. It's not coincidence. It's reconsolidation in action, silently confirming night after night, day after day, that you're still the same person you've always been, and therefore, still only have access to the same branch of reality you've always had. But here's what the science of reconsolidation also revealed, and it changes the entire game. If a memory only rewrites itself identically when it's relived with no conscious difference, then there's a window, brief but real, where that rewriting can be interrupted. An exact point where the pattern can be rewritten, not through willpower or empty affirmations, but through a much more precise, much quieter process. One that most people completely miss because they try to solve this problem at the wrong level. That breaking point, the exact instant the old timeline loses its power source, is what we're about to reveal. And it looks nothing like what most manifestation content teaches. This is where most manifestation teachings make the most fundamental mistake. They teach people to focus on creating the new, visualizing the desired future, writing affirmations, building vision boards, repeating mantras about a life that doesn't exist yet. And while those practices aren't useless, they miss a decisive structural detail. You can't build a new synchronization while you're still actively feeding the old one. Think of it this way. If every branch of reality is sustained by repeated observation, by the identity that collapses moment after moment, the same result, then every time you return emotionally to the past, every time you relive the same frustration, every time you react to the present from the same old wounds, you're literally handing attention energy back to the old branch. You're paying, with your consciousness, the maintenance bill on a reality that should have already been abandoned. There's a useful way to understand this through what's called the holographic principle, an idea taken seriously in theoretical physics, suggesting that the information constructing our three-dimensional experience can be understood as projected from a more fundamental field of information. We don't need to get into the technical, still debated details of that theory to pull a powerful and scientifically honest metaphor from it. A projection only stays sharp as long as the source keeps feeding it consistent information. Remove the source, and the projection loses definition, loses sharpness, loses strength, until it stops being perceived as solid reality at all. Your old timeline works exactly like that. It isn't destroyed by a single dramatic event, a decisive choice, a cinematic turning point. It dissolves slowly, losing definition, as you withdraw from it the one thing that kept it solid, your emotionally charged attention. That means, in practice, a radical shift in strategy. Instead of asking, what do I need to do to create the new life? The question that actually matters is, where, even today, am I still emotionally connected to the old life? That connection rarely shows up as something obvious. It disguises itself as small, almost invisible things, ruminating over a hurt you've already claimed to be over, constantly comparing who I am today to who I should have been, needing to prove something to people from your past, the habit of retelling over and over the same story of pain to justify why your life hasn't changed yet. Every one of these, however small it seems, is a thread of energy sustaining the same old projection. The real process of shutting it down doesn't require you to stop thinking about the past through brute force. That, in fact, tends to reinforce the pattern because suppression is still attention. What actually cuts the source is a shift in your emotional relationship with those memories. No longer reliving them as if they're happening now, and starting to observe them as neutral information about a branch of reality you no longer live in. That's subtle but physically significant, because when the emotional charge dissolves, memory reconsolidation, the mechanism from earlier, stops reinforcing the old pattern with the same intensity. The neural network sustaining that identity literally starts losing synaptic strength. And on the quantum level, the identity that used to consistently collapse the old branch starts becoming an observation instrument less tuned to that specific frequency. You've probably already felt the inevitable question rising. If I stop feeding that old line, what exactly fills the space? Because a system never truly stays empty. The same attention that used to sustain one branch necessarily has to start sustaining another. And this is exactly where, in the space left by the dissolving timeline, synchronization with the already existing parallel version begins to happen. Not as effort, but as natural consequence. There's a deep misunderstanding running through almost everything taught about manifestation. The idea that you need to attract something that doesn't exist yet. That framing, however well-intentioned, puts you in a position of scarcity from the very start, as if the life you want is somewhere far away, needing to be summoned, persuaded, won through repeated mental effort. But everything we've explored so far points to a structurally different truth. That version already exists. It doesn't need to be created. It needs to be synchronized. The right word here isn't attraction, it's frequency. Think of an old radio. The waves from every station are present in the environment, simultaneously, all the time. You don't create the station you want to hear. It's already broadcasting. What you do is turn the dial until the receiver tunes into that specific frequency, filtering out the noise from every other station. The music doesn't show up because you attracted it. It shows up because the instrument is finally calibrated to pick it up. Your identity, the observation instrument we've been discussing, works exactly like that receiver. And synchronicity, that phenomenon most people treat as an interesting coincidence, is, under this lens the perceptible equivalent of being correctly tuned. It isn't the universe rewarding you for thinking positive. It's the natural expected result of a recalibrated observation instrument picking up information from a branch of reality that used to be outside your perceptual range. Not because it was physically far away, but because your previous frequency simply couldn't pick it up. There's fascinating work in cognitive science that helps explain why this is plausible, and not just poetic. Cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman proposes, through his interface theory of perception, that what we perceive as objective reality isn't the territory itself, but a simplified interface, something comparable to the icons on a computer screen, which represent complex processes underneath without showing the raw code. Your perception doesn't give you access to the full reality. It hands you only the slice of information that's relevant and processable for your survival and your current state. The implication of this is radical when applied to identity. If perception is an interface, not the full territory, then changing the state that generates that interface, changing identity, frequency, the observation instrument, literally changes which icons of reality become visible and accessible to you. It's not that opportunities, people, and synchronicities start existing out of nowhere. It's that your perceptual interface, previously calibrated to pick up only elements coherent with the old identity, starts rendering elements that were always there, but were, to your old observation instrument, literally invisible. That's why synchronicities increase exactly when identity shifts, not when effort increases. You've probably noticed this in other areas of life. When you buy a specific car model, you suddenly start seeing that same model everywhere. The number of cars didn't increase. Your ability to perceive them did. Quantum synchronicity works under the same principle, just operating not on obvious physical objects, but on opportunities, encounters, information, and coincidences carrying meaning directly relevant to the emerging identity. And here's what almost nobody notices in time. The synchronization process doesn't start with an obvious major event. It starts with a small signal, almost imperceptible. A signal so subtle most people dismiss it immediately as just a silly coincidence, without realizing that's actually the first measurable sign that the transition between timelines is already underway. That specific signal, and why it's so easily ignored, is what we're breaking down next. The most common sign that synchronization is beginning isn't dramatic. It doesn't arrive like a lightning bolt, a cinematic epiphany, or an overnight life-changing event. It arrives as a quiet discomfort, almost annoying, that most people read backwards. It's the sense that something suddenly stopped fitting, with no obvious reason. A friendship that used to feel perfect starts feeling, without logical explanation, misaligned. A place that used to feel comfortable starts feeling too small, too tight. Like clothes you used to wear easily and that suddenly, out of nowhere, don't fit right anymore. Most people feeling this panic. They think they're being ungrateful, unstable, or ruining something that was good. But through the lens we've built throughout this video, that discomfort has a more precise name. It's the perceivable friction between an identity-shifting frequency and an environment that still, structurally, belongs to the old timeline. It's not that the environment turned bad. It's that it stopped being coherent with the observation instrument you're becoming. That's just one of several empirical markers of transition, recognizable signs, repeated almost identically across completely different people, which suggests we're not talking about something too subjective to take seriously, but a consistent pattern of internal reorganization. The first marker is exactly that, a sudden sense of strangeness around people, places, or routines that used to feel stable, with nothing externally having actually changed. The second is intensified dreaming, vivid, oddly sharp, often loaded with symbolism that feels too specific to be random. This lines up with what we already know about sleep's role in memory reconsolidation. It's during sleep that the brain intensely reprocesses recent neural networks, and an identity in transition frequently produces this kind of heightened dream activity, as if the system is literally reorganizing overnight. Which version of you wakes up in the morning? The third marker is an increase in small specific synchronicities, not generic coincidences but repetitions of numbers, names, ideas, or messages that seem to directly answer an internal question you never even said out loud. As we covered earlier, this is the expected result of a recalibrating observation instrument. Your perceptual interface starts rendering information relevant to the emerging identity, and because that information is still new, it catches your attention in a way familiar, old information never did. The fourth marker is maybe the most physical of all, a sense of reset in the body. Fatigue with no obvious medical explanation, a sudden need for silence, for solitude, for reducing stimulation. This connects directly to a fascinating area of modern biology, epigenetics. Research in this field, popularized by researchers like Bruce Lipton, shows that internal environment, including emotional state and perception, can influence which genes get expressed without altering the genetic code itself. In other words, a sufficiently deep identity shift can literally change how the body expresses itself biologically, before the conscious mind even finishes understanding what's happening. The body, in this sense, changes first. The mind is always the last one to get the memo. If you recognized even partially 2 or 3 of these signs in your own recent life, that's not a coincidence, and it's definitely not a reason for alarm. It's exactly the opposite. It's confirmation that the transition between timelines we've been discussing throughout this video isn't just theory. It's already happening, somehow, inside you, right now, as you watch this. What's missing, then, isn't more information. It's consolidation. There's a single exercise, simple but grounded in every principle we've explored, from decoherence to memory reconsolidation, from the observer effect to frequency synchronization, capable of tying all of it into one practical, repeatable process. And that's exactly what closes out this video. We've arrived at the point where every piece comes together. We saw that according to the many worlds interpretation, no version of you ever stopped existing. Every path not taken simply decohered, continuing on in a parallel branch just as real as yours. We saw that the observer effect isn't a lab curiosity, but the mechanism by which your identity, moment by moment, collapses which of those versions becomes lived experience. We saw that memory reconsolidation explains why that identity stays so resistant, reinforced night after night, by memories relived with the exact same emotional charge as before. We saw that there's a real shutdown point, where withdrawing emotional attention from the past gradually dissolves the sharpness of the old timeline. And we saw that in the space left by that dissolution, synchronization with the already existing parallel version begins on its own, not as effort, but as the physical consequence of a recalibrated observation instrument. Now, all of this comes down to one single truth, simple enough to fit in one sentence, but deep enough to completely change how you live the next several years of your life. The old timeline never had power of its own. It only existed because the old identity kept, day after day, funding it with attention, emotion, and repetition. The instant that identity actually changes, not as an affirmation repeated without feeling, but as a real shift in the frequency doing the observing, the field around it has no choice but to reorganize. Not as a miracle, not as luck, as a logical, almost mechanical consequence of everything we've covered here. Before you leave this video, there's one exercise that ties every principle we've discussed together, and it takes less than 2 minutes. Close your eyes if you can, or just slow down for a moment. Bring to mind, for a few seconds, a specific scene from the old timeline, not the most painful one, just one you recognize replaying often in your thoughts. Observe it, but this time not as a participant, reliving the emotion as if it's happening right now. Observe it as a witness, as if watching a branch of reality that's no longer yours, real but separate, decohered, running its own course without needing your energy anymore. Feel the physical difference between reliving and witnessing. That difference, subtle as it seems, is exactly the act of cutting off that branch's power source. Now, without forcing it, without trying to conjure a specific scene, just silently ask, what would it feel like, in the body, to be the version of me already synchronized with what I'm looking for? Not the scenario, not the external details, just the feeling. Stay there for a few seconds. That feeling, subtle as it seems right now, is the dial being adjusted. It's the observation instrument being recalibrated. And every time you repeat this process, not as a mechanical task but as genuine practice, you'll be literally tuning your identity to the branch that already exists, just waiting to be noticed. You don't need to build this life from scratch. You just need to stop funding the one that's no longer yours. If this video landed in a way few pieces of content ever have, don't leave without marking this moment. Type mirror in the comments if you felt, during that exercise, even for a second, that sense of recognition, like something inside you already knew exactly what we were talking about before I even explained it. I read every comment, and I genuinely want to know how many people in this audience are right now, standing at that exact same point of transition. Subscribe to the channel, because the next video goes even deeper into the next step of this journey. What happens after synchronization starts showing up physically, and how to recognize, without a doubt, that you no longer belong to the timeline you started from. The version you're looking for isn't ahead of you. It's right beside you. And now, you know exactly how to reach it.